Whoa, hold on.
Our forefathers weren't the pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. And because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. So our unwanted presence, the fact that we are unwanted, is becoming magnified in all of America's preachments today.
This is Malcolm X speaking in 1964 in the context of black nationalism and the political meaning of the label African American. The Plymouth Rock landed on us line comes from the ballot or the bullet. His point is not that every black family had the exact same ancestry or migration story. He is making a political argument. Open quote, white Americans generally entered the national story as settlers, immigrants, or citizens. Black Americans entered it largely through enslavement, coercion, and exclusion. Close quote. That distinction was historically real. What Malcolm was rejecting, he objected to Negro because it was a racial category imposed through white institutions and did not identify a homeland, nationality, or self-defined political identity. When he says, open quote, we are African and we happen to be in America, close quote, he is reframing black Americans as a displaced African people rather than simply a racial minority created inside the United States. That was a nationalist interpretation, not a neutral genealogical definition applicable to every individual. What he got historically right. The overwhelming majority of the ancestors of colonial-era black Americans did not arrive as voluntary settlers. They were transported through Atlantic and domestic slave systems, or descended from people who were. They were not incorporated into the country on equal terms. Enslaved people were treated as property, and even free black people faced severe legal and political restrictions. So the Plymouth Rock line works because it contrasts two founding experiences. Settlers imagined as choosing America, enslaved Africans having America violently imposed upon them. That is why the line remains powerful. It compresses an entire national contradiction into one sentence, irritatingly efficient for a human speech. Where the wording is broader than the complete history, we were Africans who were kidnapped and brought here, describes the foundational experience of African America, but not literally every black American family. Some black Americans descend partly from free Africans, Caribbean migrants, later African immigrants, Native Americans, Europeans, free black communities established before emancipation. Some Africans also participated at different levels in the capture and sale of other Africans before European transport. None of that changes the coercive nature of the transatlantic system or its central role in forming African American populations. We're not American. That is a political statement, not a denial of birthplace or citizenship. Malcolm was arguing that citizenship on paper meant little when black people were denied equal protection, voting rights, economic opportunity, and social belonging. In the same speech, he says black people were not originally brought to America to become citizens or enjoy constitutional rights. His logic was, open quote, America cannot demand black loyalty while denying black people the benefits and recognition of American citizenship. Close quote. He later developed a more international human rights framework, but he continued emphasizing African identity and global black solidarity. Why this quote matters in the current debate. This quote directly contradicts the claim that identifying as African American is some recent government fabrication imposed without black participation. Black leaders were consciously debating terms such as Negro, Black, Afro-American, African American, and various nationalist identities long before today's social media arguments. Malcolm was not confused about whether Africans had been enslaved in America. He accepted that history as foundational. His disagreement concerned what descendants should call themselves and how they should politically interpret that history. Verdict, historical foundation, A. His description of forced African arrival and exclusion from equal citizenship is fundamentally accurate. Literal universality, B. The language generalizes a diverse population for political force. Rhetorical power. A+, Plymouth Rock landed on us remains one of the clearest summaries of the difference between voluntary settlement and forced incorporation. The most accurate reading is, open quote, Malcolm X was not teaching that Black Americans lack deep American roots. He was arguing that those roots were created through forced labor and oppression rather than welcomed immigration, and that Black people should define themselves through African ancestry instead of an identity imposed by the society that enslaved them.
Whoa, listen. You think that, you thought, hold on, we don't have evidence of that.